The Radio Memories Network is brought to you in part by Liberated Syndication. Podcast publishing made easy. Libsyn.com. That's Libsyn.com.
Escape. Escape tonight to ancient Egypt.
The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations presents Escape, a new series of programs of which this, the sixth, is The Ring of Thoth by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, produced and directed by William N. Robeson. Wherever the English language is spoken, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle is known for two things: his immortal character Sherlock Holmes and his unshakable belief in life beyond the grave. So great is the stature of Sherlock Holmes that Conan Doyle's earlier stories are all but forgotten. Stories like The Ring of Thoth, which so clearly anticipates the author's later fascination with spiritualism. We invite you now to escape to ancient Egypt and The Ring of Thoth, an adventure told in the words of John Vansittart Smith, British Egyptologist.
I arrived in Paris on the 3:14 express from Dieppe and went immediately to my hotel in the Rue de Lafitte. My actions so far had worked out according to my planned schedule. I slept for exactly 2 hours, got up and dressed, donned a greatcoat, walked down the Avenue de l'Opéra, and entered a side door of the Louvre. Once inside, and amid surroundings entirely familiar to me, I made my way immediately to the Chamber of Egyptian Relics, or more specifically, to the cabinet in that chamber which contained the El Kab collection of papyri. Drawing out the particular roll I wished, I placed it on a nearby table, sat down, began to study it, when I noticed one of the museum attendants who was polishing some brasswork across the room. His face struck me as being curiously Egyptian. On sudden impulse, I decided to cross the room and speak to him. Approaching closer, I was impressed at once by the appearance of his skin. Drawn tautly across temple and cheek, it seemed as glazed and as shiny as varnished parchment, and out of narrowed slits there glowed two green and vitreous eyes, misty with a dry shininess, eyes of a kind never seen in a human head before. I beg your pardon. I need one of the papyri from the Memphis collection. Could you tell me where it is?
You'll find it in the last cabinet at the end of the room, monsieur.
Thank you. You're Egyptian, aren't you?
No, monsieur. I am a Frenchman.
But, I thought perhaps...
If monsieur will excuse me now, I have other work to do.
I went back to the table and took up the papyrus I had been studying before. But my former calmness in translating the intricate hieroglyphics was gone, and out of the depths of my mind welled a feeling of terrible familiarity. I concentrated more deeply on my studies, pushing aside those thoughts conducive to mental turmoil, and at last, worn out by the inward struggle, I fell asleep. I awoke with a start, not remembering where I was. It was quite dark for a moment. Then gradually my eyes focused on the glints of moonlight reflected from the glass tops of specimen tables, from the shiny varnish of the mummy cases. And I realized with a feeling of sudden dread that I was alone in the Egyptian room of the Museum of the Louvre, locked in for the night. And I saw at that moment, approaching through the moonlit halls, a dim yellow flame. Nearer and nearer it came until I could perceive above it, as though floating in the air, the eerie, glistening face of the man I'd spoken to earlier. I shrank into the dark shadow of my corner, and he passed without seeing me, stopping before the mummy cases a few yards away. Scarcely daring to breathe, I watched him place the light on a table and begin feverishly to examine the tags on the specimens. In a moment, he gave a cry of delight and, drawing one of the mummies from its resting place, laid it on the table in the full glow of the lantern and set to work. He was unwinding the wrappings from the head of the corpse. A few turns revealed a tumbled cascade of black curls. A few more, the snow-white brow, then the delicate nostrils, and at last, the full, warm, passionate lips, the face of the most beautiful woman the world has ever seen.
Ah, ma pauvre petite. So long it has been. So very long. You must forgive me, beloved.
I could hardly believe my eyes. The man was obviously in love with this mummy. After a while, he left the body, turning his attention to one of the glass cases filled with an assortment of rings. From a pocket of his garment, he'd taken a small glass bottle containing some kind of liquid, and he used this now to test the rings, rejecting them one after another. Then, at last...
This is it. It's the one. At last I found it. The ring of Thoth.
In his excitement, he dropped the bottle, and I gasped in surprise at the sudden sound.
Who's there?
I beg your pardon.
So it is you. No, do not move.
I didn't mean to spy on you. I fell asleep.
Who are you, monsieur?
I am John Vansittart Smith, a student of Egyptology.
No matter. You will observe this knife.
Yes?
Had I discovered you 5 minutes ago, monsieur, I should have slain you without a word.
What?
As it is now, I have found the ring. But I warn you not to interfere with me in any way.
I really haven't the slightest intention of it. After all, I'm only here by accident.
Perhaps.
I say, you shouldn't have unwrapped that mummy, you know. It's starting to deteriorate already.
Oh, my beloved.
Yes, before our eyes, the lovely face was crumbling, the hair falling away, the skin shriveling and cracking, the lips fading. The man hovered over the decaying body a moment, murmuring sorrowfully. And then he turned again.
No matter. That will not make the least difference in a little while. Of what importance is the dead shell, so long as her spirit waits for me at the other side of the veil?
What are you talking about? What is it you're proposing to do?
Tonight, monsieur, I have ended a quest and broken at last the ancient curse. Nothing now can prevent my joining her.
Are you actually claiming that you knew her?
She was Atma, daughter of the governor of Abaris. And both she and I lived in the reign of Tutmosis 3,500 years ago.
You're obviously mad.
Perhaps, but not in the way you think. There may be design in this, your coming here. It may be decreed that I should leave some account behind as a warning to other mortals as rash as myself. Very well, then. So be it. I am, as you surmised, an Egyptian. My name was Sasra, and my father had been the chief priest of Osiris in the great temple of Abaris, which stood in those days upon the Bubastic branch of the Nile. I was brought up in the temple and was trained all in the mystic arts and sciences known as the priesthood.
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hail Silver!
Of all the mysteries that I studied, none intrigued me more than the question of life and death. And even to this question, in time, I found an answer.
What for a man
This
to
is
live
the
beyond his
legend of
allotted
a
span
man
of
and a
years,
horse,
Master Sastra?
and how they met.
The gods
The
have not
story
so
of the Lone
ordained.
Ranger and his
Then
great
perhaps
horse
they will have to
Silver.
revise their ordinances now that I've discovered their secret.
Tis not well to jest. I tremble, for though I've labored
The
in your
Lone
service for
Ranger
a year,
and Tonto were
I knew
trailing the
not
worst
the
outlaw
goal of
in the
your
West.
endeavors.
His name was Butch Cavendish.
Forgive me.
They had followed his
what a
trail
pity
for
you
many
look
weeks,
upon it this
until
way.
finally
For
they
I
noticed
thought
that the
that in
hoofprints of the
return for
outlaw's
your
horse were
assistance,
fresh.
I should grant you, too,
Close to
the
Cavendish
gift of
now.
centuries of
Yes,
indestructible
Tonto,
life.
can't be
I
far
would
ahead.
not have it,
Came
Mr.
outrun us
Sasha.
last time.
And I beg that you,
Maybe
too,
better we
forgo
shoot
it.
in
Forgo
sight.
it?
No, I want to take him
I
alive.
introduced the fluid into my veins
Shot.
1
Look
month
out. Steady
ago.
there, steady boy. Over there. Killer in ambush.
Then
Come
you are
right
lost
way.
indeed.
Tonto, he missed me,
Lost?
but he shot my horse. Get after him. Get him
Do you
up,
call
fella.
this being lost?
Tonto's horse was tired and
Let's
no match
see
in
now.
speed for the animal
My
Cavendish
height
rode.
should be
The outlaw escaped.
about
When Tonto
here.
returned
For
from
that
the
knife.
futile chase,
No, don't.
he found the Lone Ranger standing beside his dead
Killed
horse.
yourself.
A good horse, Tonto. Loyal, faithful, and
bleeds,
brave.
Uncle.
But my
But in a
next horse
while, the
must be
wound will
faster.
close up,
I wish that...
and that's all.
Tonto, we've heard
It's-
stories of a wild
it's
horse, a fiery white
immortality.
stallion.
No,
Him
I shall
seen
not
your
live
valley
forever.
over there, where
But for
Cavendish
5,000,
We'll
perhaps
be on the lookout for the
6,000
wild
years,
horse while we
I
follow
shall be
Cavendish.
immune from all dangers of violence, poison, disease, starvation.
You cannot die.
Now, with this fluid in my veins, nothing.
Tonto's horse
nothing
carried the
in this
Lone
world
Ranger's
can
saddle,
end my
his
life.
saddlebags, and bridle, while the masked man and the Indian continued on foot along the outlaw's trail.
In here, my friend.
When they reached the top of a hill,
Look, Tonto.
they halted
Master of
suddenly and
Sciences,
stared at an
and his
awe-inspiring
worthy
sight
assistant.
far down in the
Excuse me,
valley.
masters. I go to make my peace with Osiris.
They saw a great white
What's wrong
stallion in
with
a
your
death
helper,
fight with a
Sasha?
giant
The
buffalo.
thought of a
The horse
well-nigh
was
eternal
plunging,
life
rearing,
is
charging,
frightening
and
into
dodging
gibbering
wildly.
superstition.
And the
Then
sun
you
flashed
still
from his
believe in the
coat as
discovery?
from a coat of polished
Believe in it?
silver. They realized
my
that
friend.
this was the legendary white stallion,
By the
the
heavens,
one
what
ranchers
has
and
gone?
hunters had talked
It
so much
pierces
about.
the heart.
Tonto, we must
Was
have
done
that
only
horse.
a moment ago
I'll try to shoot
with
the
this
buffalo.
knife.
It's too far
See?
for pistol shot.
I
I'll
can
get
put it
closer
back.
before it's too late.
As he ran downhill, the Lone Ranger watched the battle.
You've suffered no
The
ill
sweet
effect.
white stallion was nimble and
whatever.
courageous, but his
And
strength
if I-
began to wane.
if I
The
turn the
buffalo
knife in
charged
the
again
wound,
and again.
that would do you no
the
harm?
splendid muscles of
You
the
may
white
try.
horse were slower in responding, then too slow. He was caught by the buffalo's charge. Wet
I feel
crimson
nothing.
stained his pure white coat.
I walked
Another
last week
charge.
in the
The
snake
white
pits
horse
by the
saw it
river
coming
and
and he
struck
couldn't
him in the
dodge.
side.
He staggered and fell.
caused no
The
harm.
monster drew
Like a
back and
prick
lowered
in
his
you.
head for the death charge.
Will you
and
have
then
it then?
two shots
Out
rang
of
out.
all Egypt, I have chosen only you,
The
my
buffalo
friend,
shuddered from the
to share
impact of the
gift.
masked man's bullets.
But the
For an
choice is
instant,
yours.
he
I'd
stood
be a fool
motionless,
to refuse, Sasra.
then fell.
I'll have it. And now, what must I do? First, we must open a vein in your wrist, like this. Oh,
Then we drip the elixir slowly into your bloodstream. Steady now.
I don't feel anything.
There is no sensation.
Cruelly battered and
It is done.
bruised, the white
So
stallion lay
simple?
quietly.
There is
as the
nothing
Lone
more?
Ranger bathed
That's
his
all.
wounds.
And now
During
done,
the
it
next
can
several
never be
days, the
changed.
masked man and the
It
Indian
seems
cared for the
incredible,
injured horse.
supernatural.
It's
Then
no
the
more
wounds
than a
were
chemical
closed,
discovery,
and the horse's
but
strength
with it,
had returned.
while all this
There was
about
once
us
more
passes
fire
away,
in his eye,
you and
a
I,
spring in his
Barney,
step.
will live
His
on
head
for
was
50
lifted
centuries.
proudly.
Think of it, my friend.
Tonto,
5,000
he's himself
years of
again.
life.
5,000
Plenty
years.
strong.
Only the two of us.
I wonder
Listen,
if
that
he'll take a
noise.
saddle.
Some procession must be
Let's try.
passing in the street.
I have an idea what it may be. Come on over to the
Me get rope. Him run away. No, Tonto, wait. Let him go. I'd like to have that horse more than anything in the world. But he
She's being
deserves
carried
his
on the
freedom.
shoulders of
He
slaves,
fought for
Parvati.
it.
She must be some woman of rank.
Her name is
Turned to look at
Atma.
us.
She's the daughter of the new
sun
governor.
reflects from his white coat.
The curtains are drawn back. Perhaps we'll have a look at her.
That would be a name for him. Silver!
Oh,
Look at him.
harness.
Is she not beautiful?
She is the
Tonto,
most
he's
desirable,
coming back.
the only
just as if he
utterly
knew what I
desirable
said.
woman I've ever seen in my life.
Silver!
I saw her yesterday at the temple.
Silver, you...
Then you're most fortunate, my
Hand me the
friend.
halter, Tonto.
You've had 24 more hours to dream
As the
about her
mighty
than I
stallion
have.
felt the halter,
I
he
must know
trembled
her,
as if
Barney.
from a chill.
I must make her
Every
lovely. I'll
instinct
send
told him that
gifts.
he must
I'll
flee
call
at
on her
once
tomorrow.
to preserve his freedom.
Oh, it
And yet
has
he
to
stood
be
his
her.
ground.
I
It wasn't
couldn't wait any
gratitude
longer
that
than
kept him
tomorrow.
there. It was something stronger, some mysterious bond of friendship and understanding. He heard the man's voice, and he liked it.
We're going to be partners.
Visitor calls upon the beloved of the universe.
Use halter.
He is
Now,
Sastra,
Tonto, the
priest
saddle.
of the temple of
No
Osiris.
horse like that. Take
Well,
saddle.
bid him
Never was a
approach.
horse like this.
Enter,
Now,
Sastra.
Silver, we're going to work together.
The horse was wild and unused to the ways of men,
That's
and
a
the weight of
noble
a saddle
ambition.
and a rider. But the
But wouldn't
masked
it be
man
much
was a
better
kind
if
teacher. He was gentle yet firm, and Silver was intelligent. The stallion seemed to sense the desires of the Lone Ranger and did his best to cooperate. He learned quickly, and after several days of training, he was ready.
Follow me, Tonto. I'm going after Cavendish. Come on, Silver!
Yes, Silver.
No hoofs had ever beat the plains like those thundering hoofs of the great horse Silver. During the past few days, Cavendish had gotten far away, but the masked man and Tonto trailed him relentlessly with only a minimum of rest. It took days to cut down the outlaw's lead, but at long last, Cavendish came into view.
There he is! Come on, Silver!
No.
The mighty stallion responded with a new burst of speed. Cavendish fired wild shots over his shoulder until his gun was empty. His horse, though powerful and fast, was no match for the charging Silver. Fear and panic filled the outlaw's face. He heard the hoof beats ever nearer, and then the masked man shout,
I want you, Cavendish!
I have known
the masked man's avowed mission was accomplished.
Throughout the valley of the Nile.
The last of the Cavendish gang was captured to be tried by law and punished for his crimes. But there were many others whose criminal plans were to be challenged by the Lone Ranger, his faithful Indian companion Tonto, and his great horse Silver.
Such extent as you may wish to hear. But I'm finding this very difficult.
I've been told that you're a master of science, that you've unlocked the secrets of the universe, learned all the mysteries of nature itself.
Your informants have been most generous.
Yes, I'm inclined to think so.
What?
Because you've discovered nothing at all about such a simple thing as a woman's heart.
What do you mean?
I come from Thebes. And the women of Thebes are warm-blooded, passionate, and we know what we want.
Atma.
I saw you first 3 days ago. Why do you think I told my bearers to carry me down that street beneath your window?
And so, miracle of all miracles, Atma loved me. Worshipping the very ground her feet had trod upon, I lived through those glorious weeks, and with it all, our love grew apace. But one thing bore heavily upon my mind, and I came to speak of it more often to my beloved as we sat and talked by the fountain in her garden.
Look, Sasra. See how the stars shine from the water?
Yes, Atma. More lovely even than their glow in the heavens.
Are they very old, the stars?
Very old, beloved. As old as time.
And they'll go on gleaming there, long years after you and I are gone and forgotten.
Atma, my dearest, we've talked of this before, and I know it distresses you to think of it.
No, Sasra. Tonight everything is beautiful. We shall not talk of death.
Not of death, but of life. They're only counterparts of one another.
Oh, if we could only live together. Grow old together and die in the same instant.
But how much better to live and love 5,000 years. Will you not do it? Does so long a time seem too great for the love you feel for me?
Beloved, no. The time would pass in an instant, and the loss then be no easier borne than now.
Then why draw back? Will you not take the elixir now, tonight?
I'm afraid, Sasra. We'll anger the gods.
We will outlive the gods.
They will have their revenge.
Whatever occurred, we'd be together.
Yes, I've thought of that. Were it not so, I'd not even consider doing it.
Then you'll do it. Atma, you'll do it.
I need more time, only a little more to assure myself.
How much?
Tonight, Sasra. Give me tonight.
Every hour you live without the elixir is another hazard. All right, then. Tonight. And may Isis herself guard over you until the fluid courses in your veins. And so, on that accursed night, I went to my chambers and slept. And while I slept, the moon of Isis shone over the delta of the Nile. Shone but to light as foul a scene as was ever done on earth. Some hours had passed away.
Master Sorcerer, awaken! Master, awaken at once.
You know, who is it?
Oh, what a terrible thing has
Let me turn
transpired
up the
this
lamp.
night.
You're one of Atma's slaves. Why do you come here?
Oh, Master, Master.
What has happened? What's the matter? Speak.
It is she, the light of the world.
Tell me what has happened to her.
Master. Brigands came in the night. She is dead.
You lie. You lie.
Oh, Sasra, the slave speaks the truth.
Parmes, my friend. What foul joke's behind these words of his?
It's not a joke. Atma is dead. You, slave, depart from us.
Yes, masters. By your gracious leave, I depart.
Such a thing cannot be. Oh, of course. The two of you planned it together, sought to frighten me out of my wits. It's very amusing, really. But I was terrified for a moment.
Atma no longer lives. She was stabbed to death only a short while ago.
No. Oh, no. She can't be dead.
She is dead, Sosra, and for all eternity.
I must go to her. Surely something can be done.
I killed her.
What is it? What has happened?
I killed her.
Oh.
I struck her through the heart with this very knife.
You, Parmes. Why?
Because she loved you.
Why?
And because I loved her.
You, my friend.
She would not look at me.
And for that you would lose her to both of us forever?
To both of us, Sosra? I think not.
By the living Osiris, give me that knife.
That's it. Strike. Again. Here's the heart. Here, strike. Again and again, Sosra.
Wait. What foolishness. I cannot kill you.
You're wrong, Sosra. You have killed me. Those were grievous blows.
But the fluid, that cursed elixir of life, it runs in your veins as well as mine.
True. But in mine is also the antidote.
You lie. There is no antidote.
Yes, day and night. These many weeks I've worked. And I found it.
You couldn't have. Is there more of it?
Yes, a very little. But you'll never find it.
Where is it? Tell me where it is.
In the ring, Sasra. In the ring of Thoth. And you'll never find it.
I will. I must.
Go on. Live your 50 centuries. And every hour of them, think. It was your hand that struck me down. With the same knife that took her from you. Think while I go to join her.
Oh, no. You're not dead. You're not. No. For months, I searched the papers, test tubes, and the chemical flasks in the chambers of the dead priest of Thoth. Searched and found nothing. I sifted the sands where he'd walked, questioned his slaves and servants, and learned nothing. Every moment of my life, my terrible and unwanted life, was devoted to an unceasing hunt for the ring of Thoth, and all to no avail. And in time, a horde of barbarians overran the city of Abaris. In the sands of the desert, buried forever the last of my hopes. And so began the deadly march of the centuries. How can you know how terrible a thing time is? You, who've experienced only the narrow course between the cradle and the grave. I've floated down the whole stream of history. I have traveled in all lands, and I have dwelt with all nations. Every tongue is the same to me. I need not tell you how slowly the centuries drifted by. Centuries without end. Years without number. And so,
I came to be one day, a few weeks past, in San Francisco, where I came across a certain item in a newspaper.
Among recent discoveries in Lower Egypt is an unopened mummy case containing, according to the inscription on the outside, the body of the daughter of the governor of Abaris in the days of Tutmosis. In the same burial crypt, dropped into a crevice between the stones, was found a large platinum ring of singular design. Both specimens have been sent for examination to the Louvre in Paris.
So, I presume you came here to Paris, obtained this position of attendant in the Louvre with the idea of...
Only yesterday, Monsieur Smith. As you may imagine, I had little difficulty in convincing the director of my knowledge of Egyptian relics.
The ring, then. The one I saw you remove from the case is the ring of Thoth?
Without question.
You've discovered how the ring must be used?
The secret is obvious. See, the stone is hollow, and drops of liquid move within it.
Have you considered the possibility that this antidote may not perform the function which has been claimed for it?
It will, monsieur. And there'll be no need of a knife to strike me down. My death was due in a time long past, and only this damnable fluid that runs through my veins supports the weight of my years. I delay no longer. I go to join her where she waits for me in death.
No, don't. Oh.
Too late. I've broken the gem. I've taken the antidote.
I stood and watched him with a terrible fascination, but without pity and without compassion. He turned away from me and reeled toward the mummy he'd left on the table across the room. But even as he turned, the parchment skin of his face cracked and shredded. Discolored lips shriveled away from the yellow teeth. The vitreous eyes withered into nubs of formless plasm, and the full weight of his 3,500 years descended on him in an instant. I left that room of death and walked over the marble floors toward the exit, my footsteps echoing through the empty halls, even as they had echoed for so long in the corridors of time. And I wondered as I walked if Sasra knew now what I knew, that the antidote in the ring of Thoth can bring death to the body, but not to the soul. And I wondered in what cloak of flesh his spirit now dwelt, just as I, Parmes, priest of Thoth, had for the last 40 years of my 3,500 dwelt in the body of John Vansittart Smith.
Doctor, he's so little and so red.
Well, now, he's only 2 days old.
But he doesn't look a bit like either his father or me.
Give him time, my dear. All babies look pretty much alike when they're first born.
I don't know. His eyes or... Oh, it's silly, of course, but he looks like an Egyptian.
Produced and directed by William N. Robeson, The Ring of Thoth by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was adapted for radio by Les Crutchfield, with Jack Webb as Sosra, Thomas Freebairn Smith as Vansittart Smith, and Joan Banks as Atma. The special musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Fewer. Escape is presented by the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations each week at this time. Next week, we invite you to escape to a raft in the South Pacific with John Russell in his unforgettable story of human frailty, The Fourth Man. And so good night until next week at this time, when again it will be Time to Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.